Welcome to the Sutherland Report once again. It is such an honor to have your attention, and it really is, and spend this time with you. Now, I know I always say this, but I am genuinely very excited to bring on my next guest, because I won't deny I'm a little bit of a fanboy. And what I mean is that I have followed this gentleman's work and the gang for quite some time, and had the privilege to meet or interview some members of the gang. And it's Jamie Glazov of the Glazov gang and much more. Jamie, thank you so much for joining me. And I mean that. I have followed your work and fellow members of your gang for a long time. And it's a real privilege to be able to sit down and have a discussion. So thank you very much.
Well, I'm honored as well, and I'm very grateful. And when somebody appreciates my work and our work, I'm very appreciative, because there's so much hate out there, so thank you.
Absolutely. So let's just bring this up. And it's wonderful how the graphics immediately line up and we can still see each other. That also pleases me. So you have just you first wrote this in 2009, and please correct me if I've got that right. And then you brought this book, your book, up to date. And 2009, we have gone through our Brexit vote. We've gone through the first Trump administration. We have then gone through all the Antifa, BLM. We have then gone through January the 6th. And now we've gone through the 4 years of the Biden regime, as I'll call it. And now we're into the second administration of Donald J. Trump. And we have switched from people that would call themselves conservatives, that's a subject for another day, into our utter madness, as far as I'm concerned, in regard to now we've got our Biden years that are going on over here. Jamie, what, in your words, what was your motivation for updating your book, fully aware of the 7th of October 2023 and what unleashed in Israel? Your thoughts, sir?
Well, thank you, Mark. Well, I think I'd like to start with this in a way, and maybe I giggled a little bit, but sometimes I don't know whether to laugh or cry. When you study the left, it's just this constant story of leftists saying, oh, we're building utopia, we're doing it, and then they get slaughtered. And then the next phase comes and they say, oh, we're going to do it, and then they get slaughtered. And it's this ongoing killing machine, this death wish. And in United in Hate, I show, they travel over to, Stalin's killing fields. The fellow travelers go over there. A whole bunch of them start disappearing. They don't even ask about each other. They're worshiping at the killing fields. And then the Yagodas are killing the Yagodas. Yagoda was one of the executioners in the Stalinist police. Then the fellow travelers are worshiping Mao's killing fields. Then they're worshiping Castro's killing fields. But they also becomes the victims of these killing fields. And we know what happened to the leftists. First of all, we know what happened to all the liberals that supported the Bolshevik Revolution. We know what happened to a lot of the leftists that supported Khomeini's revolution. So I just want to begin with that, growing up, I saw this death wish on the left. And at the same time, a euphoria and ecstasy of support for the killing fields that they're watching. So why I wrote United in Hate is when I saw the leftist feminists at those anti-war demonstrations after Ground Zero, when Bush, started sending troops to Afghanistan and Iraq. When you look at those demonstrations, there's this barely clothed, kind of naked feminist screaming Allahu Akbar right next to this Islamist at this demonstration. And I'm looking at that thinking, okay, this is interesting, but nothing new, as Ecclesiastes tells us. There's nothing new under the sun. So this is continuing all the time. And so I had to put United in Hate out again, because I put United in Hate out because 9/11 really, I knew it, but it startled me in how powerful this craving for death is on the left. And then on October 7th, when we saw this barbarity perpetrated against the Jewish people, and I knew right away, oh, okay, so the left's going to start cheering and anti-Semitism is going to escalate now. Because the normal thing you would think is a normal human being looks at October 7th and goes, oh, Islam is barbaric. These jihadists are evil. Look what they're doing to the Jewish people. But you see, the left is very different. And so when the left sees the killing fields of our adversaries, it flies into ecstasy and euphoria. And I document this in United in Hate. And so I had to bring United in Hate up to date with October 7th. And now, Mark, when we see the left just sobbing, gnashing at the teeth, they're just in a rage that the mullahs are getting killed in Iran, because there's no adversarial dictator that the left doesn't love. And I dedicate my life to trying to understand this, because my parents were dissidents in the Soviet Union. We escaped that hellhole. I love America. And growing up in America and in Canada, I noticed that the left hates our civilization and very much supports the movements and totalitarian ideologies that want to destroy us. So I'm very interested in this movement. I also hate this movement. And to summarize my little, maybe too long of a speech right now, is I always think about suicide by cop. I always think about that individual that goes out there and tries to get killed by the police. And I always think, what if suicide by cop was an actual entire globalist movement? Why would you open up our border? Why would you do that? And when we look at the members of Sharia in New York City taking over the streets and screaming Allahu Akbar, and a whole bunch of them are from Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, and again, somebody will say, oh, you're being racist. No, actually not, because I'm referring to the followers of Sharia from those places. And so you got to ask yourself, why would you support those people coming here that believe in an ideology that wants to destroy our civilization? So I'll begin with that.
Your opening speech is superb, Jamie, and I get it. So let's go in, and I don't know if we have time. It'd be very interesting for you to reflect on what's happening here in the UK, but we may get to that. So the observations that you've made in New York in regard to Mamdani, and even as we're speaking in the last few days, where just to back up what you've said, which is that Mamdani's wife, when you go through the Twitter feed or the X feed that she has, and then people have said, well, she liked this and she liked that, and that refers to the actions of Hamas. What was the voting turnout in New York, Jamie? Was it 30, 32%? Was it extremely low? Why would people
go? No, absolutely. Go ahead.
I was going to say, respectfully, why we've had the same over here in our last election. Okay, only nearly 40% of people that were entitled to vote actually voted. So why did New Yorkers not engage in this? Is that because they thought this was a joke, or he's not going to win, this is not serious? Your thoughts on that, considering Mandani promised them the world?
Well, thank you, Mark. You're hitting at the heart here. Where do we start? While Europe Slept by Bruce Bauer. We can begin with that. So our populations are indoctrinated. There's a lot of Stockholm syndrome. There's a lot of apathy. There's a lot of indifference. So it's a combination of things, you know. So a lot of people are not engaged. They're not involved. There's also some people that argue that maybe there was something not altogether right about that election and other elections. So, but the bottom line is, I don't think people came out in droves to oppose Mamdani. Let's just stick with that. Because let's just say this, there's a lot of leftists out there. And the left has been very, very successful in indoctrinating a lot of people. And let's just go over to the UK for a minute. So we have these Muslim rape gangs that have raped, you know, sometimes I don't even like putting a number on it, in the sense of, because it takes away the barbarity of even what happened to one girl. But they're saying conservative estimates is even 250 million. Some even say 1 million over the last 20, 25, 30 years and what's happened there. We know that in surahs 424, 3350, 3359, 2431, there are foundations there for the rape of the sex slave and the rape of the women that are not dressed properly, the kufr, etc., etc., etc. And we know that the followers of Sharia in that context are often praying during the day and going out and raping at night. And many of the victims will even tell you, victims of Boko Haram, of ISIS, of the Muslim rape gangs, they will tell you that my rapist was praying and explaining the Quran and Hadith to me while he was doing this.
Yes, yes.
Our civilization is completely in denial about this. So that's my main interest. We get what our enemy is doing and what motivates him, although we have to keep stressing it because there's so much denial. But my area is what on our side will not verbalize, will not say this. And so the left has been so successful. My point here is that while that is happening to British girls, the leftist believes that if there's a couple Muslim cab drivers sitting outside a school, and then there's a few Catholic nuns walking down the street right next to the school, that both should be equally looked at. If you're a police officer, an investigator, both are equal threats. And this is what's taking down our civilization. There's a jihad denial, just like there is Holocaust denial, just like there is Gulag denial, there is jihad denial. And I will begin with this, that the left overall wants to destroy Western civilization. It wants to destroy the Judeo-Christian culture and society and foundations. So if you say to Noam Chomsky, look what the Pol Pot's killing fields are doing in Cambodia, we know that he was trying to block and deny the testimonies of the refugees when they were first coming out of the Khmer Rouge killing fields. You got to ask yourself, why was he doing that? Why was Walter Durante denying what Stalin was doing? Why was the left overall trying to deny the evil of the Soviet regime? Why is Joy Reid right now talking about how, okay, that might be happening in Iran, but our society is just as bad, if not worse, you know, for people and, you know, certain groups, etc. Why would you do that? Why this equivocation? Why this moral equivalency? Or why even say that our society is worse than the society of our adversaries? If you want to destroy this society, and somebody says to you, But look at over here. Look at Iran. The mullahs are throwing acid in women's faces that are not veiled properly. You would think that a feminist would say, this is horrible. What inspires this? What sanctions it? And then we can answer, well, let's look at the Quran, let's look at the Hadith and what the foundations are to this. If you do that, the leftist might have to conclude, number one, oh, that's evil. What's the next step? Oh, our culture and civilization is superior to that. What's the next step? Our society is worth protecting and defending. They can't do that because their top priority is to destroy this society. So if your top priority is to destroy Western civilization and the Judeo-Christian culture, you have to push into invisibility the evil of our adversaries. Not just push it into invisibility, but if you believe that this earth needs to be destroyed in order to build the paradise on top of it, if there needs to be ground zero to build paradise on top of it, then you might want to also support and aid and abet the people that want to perpetrate ground zero. You've got the Sharia followers that want to create Sharia paradise. You've got the leftists who want to create the classless paradise. Both of them need to build it on the ashes of ground zero. And therefore, they are united, not in love. They are united in
hate.
Right.
What a fantastic summary, and let's go back in history and then go back into present day, because it's what you if we look at Sydney and Beatrice Webb, who then go to, off they go to Russia. We don't see any problem with this, and then by 1928, it's suddenly raised that where timber that the UK then Britain is then importing in is loaded by people that are in a gulag, and that this is slave labor, and they are loading this, even though the Webbs, etc., and in our press, and even though Malcolm Muggeridge then questioned all that, turn around and go, oh no, it's paradise, everything is fine. There's a wonderful book that you may have come across, which is Giles Udy, labor in the gulag. And of course then we end up talking about the Fabian Society, which is where we are at over here, and all of this. But if we go back to that in 1928, and then suddenly there's an embarrassing debate in Parliament about, our timber is being loaded by slave labor from the gulags. And then, as you've just brilliantly pointed out, we've then reached a situation, of course, the left say, yes, but the communism didn't work then. It didn't work then. It didn't work then, but don't worry, we are going to bring it all in right now, and it is going to work. And as you've said, they've forgotten about the democide and the killing of people. And what you've said about Chomsky reveals everything. And I suppose we won't discuss visitations to an island or messages. We'll leave that to one side. But in regard to that moral code, I'll finish with this on this point. Then we reach a point where in the United Nations, you take the poor women who suffered what they did from the 7th of October, you take them in there, and then you take them to, as it was called out by Fleur, who presents the quad with the other wonderful ladies there, where are the feminists? Where are they defending what our women went through? And of course, as you say on your side of the pond, it was absolute crickets. There's no moral code to me, Jamie, or am I making that up?
You're completely right, and there is a code. I would start with this. Thank you, Mark. You're right on target there. I mean, look, there are brave women that are for women's rights and support women's rights. Now, feminism, that's a bit of a different matter, and the debate lies elsewhere because Carrie Gress, Janice Fiamingo, there's a lot of female scholars out there that have shown that something is very badly rooted in feminism, even to begin with. But that doesn't mean that, I fought for women's rights my entire life. The last 30 years, one of my main goals, excruciating work, but to defend Muslim girls suffering from honor killings and female genital mutilation. And these leftist feminists that call people like me haters of Muslims while we're trying to protect Muslim people, they don't do anything. But they do have a code. So these leftist feminists that I know and have been around for decades, oh yeah, they believe in women's rights. Kathy needs to have 6 abortions. She's only had 5. That's That's feminism for them. Oh, I want my son to be gay and trans. This is feminism for them. But when I've approached these leftist feminists, even when I was in academia, and I would say, okay, I understand that feminism for you is killing, unborn babies and hating men at the same time wanting to be like men. Can we just for one moment take a look at this petition here that I got? This is to protect women under Islam that are tortured and barbarized, forced veiling, forced child marriage, acid thrown in women's faces, forced segregation, forced veiling, honor killings. Sign this petition that you support these women, are against this abuse, and that you also oppose the Islamic verses that inspire and sanction this. Mark, we know the answer. They will not do that.
No.
And why won't they do that? Because they don't care about women. This whole feminist movement of the, and I want to just emphasize leftist feminism for now, because we need to get into it on a deeper level. The leftist feminists, which is what feminism is in the West with very few exceptions, they only support women's rights if it can help destroy the Western patriarchy, quote unquote. If it doesn't help to destroy the Western patriarchy, they're not interested in Asia Bibi, the lady in Pakistan, the Christian who suffered years of incarceration and abuse. They don't care about her, because if you care about her, you don't have a weapon to beat the Western society. These are very callous people, and all their talk about rights and women's rights and minority rights, all of this is just BS. They need to destroy the Western society, and whatever weapon they can use, they'll use it. That's why right now we see that leftist feminists and the left overall do not support the Iranian people, the Persian people that suffer so much under that barbarity, because it doesn't help their cause. It actually weakens their cause. They're terrified if the mullahs get overthrown.
Absolutely. And just to remind ourselves, and I've constantly said this to people over the last few weeks, and is just going, any society that decides to bring in, to some extent, people from the outside, with machine guns to murder their own people, we've seen it before, but they don't seem to be learning any lessons here. So within Iran, maybe a minimum of 35,000 people of his own brave, beautiful citizens have mowed down. That could be far, far more, let alone the amount injured. And as we've said, you've said so many important things. Where is that morality? And also, Jamie, if I may be bold enough to say that there we are, two men of the age that we are, with life experience that we are, then discussing feminism, right? Which in certain quarters we're being completely struck off for even doing that, but we're entitled to do that and to question when it goes down the road of the denial of then. You're not talking about fellow women who have been raped, pillaged, as you said, or in regard to Israel, taken as hostages, etc. It is really important that we that we have this conversation. It is absolutely vital. But Jamie, how I think you began to answer it, but how come the great city of New York, one of the most, the most, I would say, number one city in New York, in America, with all its influence for many years, with all its history, um, how come it voted someone like, well, you've said it, like Mamdani in, even though, as a dear friend of mine, Rabbi there was warning? And why have we got to this point that people will not engage in the voting process, especially of a country where, you have this incredible constitution, you are a representative republic with alienable rights given, you acknowledge God, they are God-given rights. But why have we reached this point? I can also talk about that over here. Why have you reached that point in New York?
Well, thank you, Mark. Let me begin just on these themes here in terms of the indoctrination. First of all, the leftist dream, the Marxist dream, the communist dream, it's very, very hypnotic, and it attracts people. If you're not courageous and you're not wise and you're not ready to walk alone, chances are you're going to be caught with this virus. When Obama was on stage saying, it doesn't matter who you love, it doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter what creed or religion, come on up here. It's very hypnotic for a lot of people. They want to join, and everybody's going to hold hands, and we're all going to be the same, and we're all going this is a very appealing dream, and they say, the devil often shows up with a pitchfork and horns. Well, a lot of times it's very, very beautiful picture. It's just slightly blurred. So this is the communist dream that they're offering people, and it's very hypnotic. And so people that are not wise and are afraid and are under siege, they get caught up in this lie. And no matter how many times they've tried to build utopia on earth, every time it leads to hell. But let me just say this in terms of how clever the left and the jihadists are in their alliance, and how they've brainwashed people to also not oppose this movement. So on the one hand, it's very hypnotic and telling people we're going to build paradise, just come with us. But there's a tremendous intimidation and bullying there. So look what they've done here. Because to stand up and say, no, this is wrong, well, a very large percentage of Americans now have Stockholm syndrome in terms of 9/11, and they're terrified. Let's just begin even with two things. The left is very clever what it's done. It's conflated Muslims with Islam in terms of the propaganda. So when Jamie Glazov says women are honor killed because of what's in the Quran and the Hadith, when Jamie Glazov says, in terms of the Quranic teachings of the captives of the right hand, and that's why ISIS and Boko Haram take sex slaves, etc., what the left does and what the jihadist propaganda says is, you hate Muslims. If you say something about Islam, you're told that you hate Muslims. And if you hate Muslims, then you're a racist and white supremacist, etc. And people are terrified of being called a white supremacist and racist in the West. Now, this goes without saying, of course we're against racism. Of course it's a bad thing. I'm only putting a but in there in the sense of people are so terrified of being called that. And if you take a stand against Islam, it means you hate all Muslims. People don't want to be called that. They're terrified of being named a racist in that context. And the left has been very clever in conflating Muslims with Islam. Then what they've done is they've racialized Islam. Islam is not a race. But because the left has been so brilliant in saying that the brown minorities of the world are the oppressed and the downtrodden and victims of white supremacism, if you even say one word against Islam, critical of Islam, it immediately means that you are punching down and you are insulting brown minorities in the world that have been victims of the white supremacist patriarchy. So you're immediately a racist if you criticize Islam. And people are so terrified of this that they won't peep one word about Islam. If they have to even make even one admission of something that jihadists are doing, they're terrified to do it because the left has won the propaganda war on that score. And so there's a propaganda war going on here. And a lot of New Yorkers are either brainwashed in terms of leftist indoctrination, but a lot are also terrified to take a stand because you will be labeled awful names, and then you will lose all your friends, and then you might even lose your job, and et cetera, et cetera. The left is now dominating the boundaries of our discourse. Stephen Coughlin has written a book called Catastrophic Failure. And what is terrifying that he documented is that the Muslim Brotherhood, through its front groups, is actually advising our governments, our leading institutions. I mean, thank God for Trump, but he's just a president. Don't get me wrong, president, great. But a lot of the institutions, a lot of our foreign policy apparatus, dominated by the Muslim Brotherhood. Imagine that in the Cold War, that our main foreign policy architects and engineers were advised by the KGB. That's what's happening in the West now.
Well, in fact, if you go back to American history and we think of the time when the State Department is then supporting Chiang Kai-shek and then flips to Mao and all of that, if we look at that, and then if we look at the formation of Israel on the on the 14th, 15th of May 1948, but the leading up to that with Truman and having that argument within the State Department of, no, I don't think it's a good idea that you recognize the formation of Israel, and the fight going on. I'm not saying that to be clever. There is a point I want to make here, which is when you said, yes, Donald Trump is just the president. We're glad he's there. But look at all the other, as we call over here within our civil service, we call the blob, how the blob, basically the civil service are running the country, and the ideologies that they then believe in have come in, and I'd say massive collectivization. So you're alluding to the fact, are we alluding to the fact, Jamie, that so many people, so many Americans, is it because they're just trying to get on with their lives to the best of their ability? They've then switched off. They're not participating in any of the political process. And I'll just finish by saying this. Jan 6, which is a subject very close to my heart, and I have spoken about and supported dear friends of mine in America on this, and all the spill out of that. Are people aware? We've tried to wake up and see what's going on within the State Department, within the apparatus of government. And we're still, as you said, because I'm aware of, I think of who you're talking about. When you look at the formation of the Muslim Brotherhood in 1924, and there has been this long game, and now they're 56 years, 60 years into this. And we haven't, for some of us, we haven't been looking at this. We haven't been studying this. Why have they managed to then get, I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of Americans to be subdued in this way, Jamie? I know it's a long-winded way of saying this, because I am as concerned as you are of how asleep people are. And yes. a dear friend in New York is constantly batting, dear Marshall is constantly bashing his head against a brick wall going, I've got to wake people up. What is going on? Jamie, sorry, I don't know if I've made sense there, but it's this lulling to sleep. You've already referred to an extremely good book in that regard.
No, Mark, you're hitting, this is the core. And it's a pleasure to speak with you because this is the core. And, I've dedicated my whole life to trying to understand this, just even some people that I'm in dialogue with, when I see their reluctance with me. Oh, Jamie, oh, you're so pessimistic. Oh, he's exaggerating. Oh, no, everything, and when I peel the layers off that and what I begin to see, Kenneth Levin, you've had
Yep.
a wonderful interview with him, The Oslo
Thank
Syndrome.
you.
Brilliant man, brilliant book. What people need to believe under siege, what so many people need to believe when they're under siege. And so we saw in the Oslo Syndrome, Kenneth showed that the evidence was that there's this ideology and its followers. They hate you and they want to kill you. This isn't going to work. But for so many people, it's just too hard to accept that. And they need to believe that we're just going to give a little bit of money, we're just going to give a little bit of land, and we're going to give a few hugs, and then everything will be okay beyond any reasonable doubt. And they're killing you, and they're killing you, and then they lift the sword and they're going to behead you. And you're saying, Islam is a religion of peace. Islam is a religion of peace. And then they behead you. There's this suicidal delusion. And I've thought about that a lot. I have, people in my life that just, they don't want to agree with me. They hide from me. They've walked away from me. Why? Just let's point at a couple things here, because this is what I've been studying about the left. So first, as Christian believers, you and I, Mark, why are we here? Well, some reasons. First of all, God is perfect, and only God is perfect. Only Jesus is perfect, and the Holy Spirit. Jesus gave his life for us, and we need to be in repentance. Yes, on this planet, we can fight for freedom and fight for this and do many things, but we can't create a perfect world, and we need to repent. And we need to thank Jesus for giving his life for us. Why I'm saying that is the leftist is very far from that. The leftist believes that he can create a perfect planet. They're gods. They're self-appointed redeemers, okay? Now, the direction I'm trying to go in here, just on the point that I'm making, is that many on the left, they cannot accept the limitations of the possible. That perhaps Gad Saad and Mark Sutherland and Kenneth Levin are correct, and we have a huge battle in front of us, and there are some things that I can't control. But you see, there's such a narcissism on the left that they're gods. They cannot accept when we begin to stress the problems of Islam. It's too much for them. There's people that it's an emotion. Number one, it's an emotional incapacity. There's a lot of people, they just can't get through the day. I know some people just personally, and they sometimes even admit it to me. They say, if I accept what you think, Jamie, I won't even make it through the day. It's too depressing. So they need to believe. They need to deny the problem of jihad. They can't accept it. They have an emotional incapacity. They confuse their political beliefs with emotional incapacity because they can't bear the thought of what Reagan said. Because Reagan said that every generation has to shed blood to keep freedom going, right? We have to constantly shed our blood for freedom because freedom is not a natural state. For many people, they can't accept this. They want to believe that everything will be okay. And there's a tremendous narcissism there, too. Bill Siegel has written a book called The Control Factor. They need to be in control. That's why I stressed our Christianity earlier. We're not in control. God is in control. And we have to surrender. Even in Revelations, when it says the saints in paradise, in heaven, are begging the Lord for justice on earth for the martyrs. And we know that, vengeance is the Lord's and things are on his time. But there's a lot of injustice and unfairness here that we can't control, right? We have to surrender our hearts to God and to Jesus. But for the leftist can't admit it. So when you present the leftist and show, oh, well, look at these verses right here that say, kill the unbeliever wherever you find them. Oh, look at Sahih Muslim 6985, the genocidal hadith. All Jews need to be slaughtered before the day of judgment. For the leftist, it's like, well, wait a minute. I can give some land. We can do this. You see, the leftist needs to be in control. It's a narcissism. They can't accept that the problem of jihad is larger than them, right? They have to be able to control everything. So there's a denial, and there's also a very strong narcissism in them because they've made themselves gods that can control everything.
And when you're wonderfully quoting scripture, and we're turning to the Bible, and then we think of the early Christians, and there they are being used as entertainment and thrown before the lion into the literally physically into the lion's den. And I'm also thinking when you talk about the Book of Revelation and the 7 letters to the churches, Jamie. Where are they? What country are they in? Where are they now? Do people think about Turkey, Constantinople? What happened? What happened at that time? And then in your history, in regard to the Barbary Wars and the Marine song, on the road to Tripoli, and there's the president then at that time saying, why are our ships being attacked in the Mediterranean? Now, here's an interesting thought. Why are our ships? Well, our book says you are the infidel. That's why. Yes, but we were under the protectorate of the British, and you were our colony. We had a little fracas in 1776 onwards for a few years. But the point is, oh, well, no, you were under the protectorate of the British, and the illusion is that we're paying as a nation. We are paying something, whether we're paying jizya. Well, what are we paying to then protect our own fleets, etc. At that time? And we look in the Mediterranean and what was going on, but we're not discussing the gates of Tours, or many years before that. We're not discussing those issues. And of course, correct me if I'm wrong, just quickly, Obama, didn't he make great play on, look, here's the I think it is Washington, please correct me, here's his Bible at that time, he had a copy of the Quran. Well, there is a reason he read it, isn't there, Jamie? He was trying to understand why American citizens were being taken hostages and why boats were being attacked. So I'm just bringing up history. Am I not? Am I bringing up historical facts?
Well, absolutely. And that's a very wise reading of things. And I'm on the side of trying to explain our surrender to everything that you're discussing, because it's a very long history, and it's so much common sense there in terms of the threat that we're under. And I just want to add 2 things just to kind of light a light bulb for people in terms of how they think about the left and what's happening in front of our eyes. Our surrender to jihad and Sharia. Just 2 components here, and I'll talk about the feminists here. We know, and I document this in United in Hate, and there's further evidence of this even happening right now. If people want to get in touch with me, I can send them links and information on this. We have leftist feminists going to Palestinian territories to join the Palestinian cause of Hamas and of Fatah, the anti-Israeli crusade, and they're getting raped and brutalized over there. And then they don't say anything about it because they don't want to disqualify the cause. So there's a certain suicide that's happening there for the idea, right? I want to bring this up as well here. When you look at the women dressed in black garbage bags in Pakistan and in Iran and Saudi Arabia, the morality police, but the women especially, and you've got these women with the sticks walking around in black garbage bags, whipping the women that aren't dressed properly. I've always been very interested in that phenomenon. the woman in a black garbage bag whipping the woman that's showing a little bit of hair and you can see a little bit of her face. The phenomenon there that's happening in the West is ingratiating yourself, trying to ingratiate yourself with your potential executioner. Okay? So some of the Jewish people throughout history, the leftist ones that that try to escape the anti-Semitism, and they say, I'm the good Jew. See, those are the bad Jews over there. I'm the good one. And they think that they can be spared somehow. And I'm referring to leftist Jews here. And so the ingratiating yourself with the potential executioner, trying to out-radicalize your executioner. So there's that phenomenon there of Stockholm syndrome, and it's happening here in the West. And then David Potter has written about something called a phenomenon called negative identification. And it's the living vicariously through totalitarian movements. Now, he didn't get into the issues that we're discussing. He just talked about this phenomenon of negative identification. But make no mistake, I'm very interested in this phenomenon. Mark, we know very well during the period that we just came out of in terms of the substances that they were trying to put in our bodies around the world, right?
Yep.
We know very well, I know very well what the people that were in line with that pandemic, we know very well what they wanted to do to us, what they still want to do to us. There's a deep hatred there, and they're living vicariously, and a lot of people want to deny this. But what's happening, for instance, to the Persian people right now, what's been happening to the Cuban people right now, when the left does not support those people, make no mistake, a very large portion of leftists are joyfully, cheerfully enjoying the sadistic brutalization of people because they themselves are wannabe tyrants who want to inflict pain. The left is rooted in violence and sadism. So when you see feminists who don't support the Iranian women or the Afghani women, it's because they hate women and they hate themselves, and they enjoy vicariously the torture of women. And a lot of people don't want to accept that, but it is the case.
No, they don't want to accept that, Jamie. They don't want to look at this, do the research. When you're telling me of people that that say, well, paraphrasing, I don't really want to face what you're saying, Jamie. I think you're right, but I don't want to face it. I don't want to have that discussion with other people. It's sad, especially.
It's just a few of the extremists. They can sleep better at night, Mark. It's just a few of the extremists who don't understand Islam very well, and then they sleep better at night, right?
But you and we've just discussed history. If we raise that history with them and say, here are the facts, because they're viewing things through emotions, they've got problems with facts, haven't they? And when we then study Islam and what it actually represents, and when you're explaining to people, there's a slow build up. When they feel they've got a political hold, then they're pushed that even more. Only when they're they feel they're getting in a dominance position. Jamie, it's been an amazing conversation. I feel you and I can sit down for hours and just have this conversation, and I'm very grateful to you for it. But before we sort of go round up, could you say where people can get hold of your book, talk about website, and also I just want to say thank you so much for putting my dear little film, The Iris Echo, on front page, Mag. That was very much appreciated. Thank you.
And you're a great filmmaker, and that's a very powerful film. Before I tell people, just my last very quick example. I'm involved in some athletic activities, and here in Los Angeles, and there during the phase we just came out of, there were some women that we were involved in some athletic activities, and one of them says to me, "Oh, can you take a picture of me, please, while I'm, just hitting this boxing bag or whatever?" And I'm like, "Okay." And she goes, "1 second," and she puts on a mask. But she didn't wear the mask the whole time. But if I'm taking a picture, it has to have a mask, right? She has to have a mask. She goes, "Oh, Becky and, Samantha, I'm making up the names. They'll kill me if they see me without this mask." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. It's fascinating, Mark, because if she doesn't have her mask on, she will lose all of her friends. You see, the left is a social club. It's a social movement. They'll even stand in line while they're seeing people dropping dead by having certain substances put into them. They'll stay in the line, and they'll get it, because sacrificing your life is better than losing the cause and changing the way you want to see yourself and the way you want to be seen and to be part of a movement. This is a social club. And so there's leftists, for instance, that have said to me, "You like Donald Trump? How can you like Donald Trump?" And I'll say, it doesn't matter. We shouldn't even be debating each other, because if you end up agreeing with me, you're not going to have any friends left. And for you, the most important thing is to stay in your social community, to virtue signal and get lots of pats on the back. So I just wanted to add that. And I'm trying to tell all these truths. In United in Hate, go to Amazon or go to our magazine, frontpagemag.com. What an honor it was to fight on the right-hand side of David Horowitz for 25 years. He came out of the left. He knew the left, and he fought the left. And we were at his right-hand side fighting the left right along with him, because he understood the evil of the left, and it's what I've dedicated my life to fighting. Go to frontpagemag.com, go to our bookstore, or go to amazon.com, or go to my site, jamieglazov.com, and get United in Hate. And why I love coming on this show, Mark, and love watching your show and everything that you do is because you talk about the issues. And for so many years, I would be watching the establishment media, and I'm like, why aren't they asking this? Why didn't they say this? Why didn't they ask this question? And then I said, forget it. I'm going to go start a show, and I'm going to ask the questions, and I'm going to invite the people that they won't invite. And we know that even on some conservative forums in America, there's a blacklist. We don't see Bridget Gabriel and Pamela Geller and Robert Spencer and Bosch Foston and David Wood and Annie Cyrus on some of the media that you would think, because there's a blacklist and there's a taboo in terms of what you can say about the religion of peace, right? Because if you don't put radical in front of Islam, they don't want to talk to you, so they can sleep better at night. But that's why I created my show, The Glazov Gang, so we can talk about all these things, just like you very heroically talk about all these things. So I'm asking people, please come check out my show, The Glazov Gang. We invite a lot of big people, and we have very honest discussions about what's really happening and what the left really is and why it aids and abets our enemies. And you can check us out on Rumble, on YouTube, The Glazov Gang, or just come to our website, jamieglazov.com. And I so appreciate, Mark, that you've allowed me to talk about this and to promote our efforts, because we are so marginalized, and in our culture we are being pushed into invisibility. Europe did not only sleep, America is sleeping, and thank God for Donald Trump. Thank you, Lord. But is he enough? Is he enough? That's the question, because we even see something very dark rising among the right now in terms of these forces that are taking us a very sharp, scary turn against Israel and against the Jewish people. And as Christians, we know that God chose first he chose the Jewish people to bring his light and law into the world. A lot of people misunderstand. Chosen people does not mean that they're better. They just have a
Absolutely.
certain role. They have a certain duty and obligation to bring in God's law and his light into the world. God chose Mary, a Jewish woman, to bring our Savior into the world. And as Roy Schoeman has powerfully written, his book, Salvation Comes Through the Jews. We leave this up to God. We don't know how it's going to happen, but we do know that Jesus Christ returns through the Jewish narrative. We have to love the Jewish people and support the Jewish people. Why would Hitler try to kill all the Jews? Why is Islam trying to kill all the Jews? If we understand the spiritual war, we understand that Satan's trying to kill all the Jews. Why? Because even though he knows scripture and he knows this and knows this, he doesn't have complete divine wisdom. He believes that if he can kill all the Jewish people, he might be able to prevent the second coming. That's one part of this. And we should not be on that side. We have to be supportive of the Jewish people and love the Jewish people and be in defense of Israel during this time. So something very scary has always been on the left in terms of anti-Semitism, but now we see it rising very sharply in our own ranks.
Absolutely, and we're called them out. We're looking at the Tucker Carlsons and the Candace Owens and the Megyn Kellys, etc., and the Nick Fuentes. We're seeing that, and even when they're calling out that we actually want a different, or in Nick Fuentes' case, we want a different president. We want to take, we don't want MAGA and all that. I mean, that's another discussion for another day. And Jamie, can I just ask that I'd be honored if you would come back and we can do this again. I would love that if that's okay with you, sir.
Absolutely. Mark, thank you so much for having me on your program. Thank you. And what a vile force the left is. And I've dedicated my life to exposing it. We have up to 100,000 Persian people that have just been massacred in the streets. And the left does not say one word. They are just such disgusting lowlives, and they're destroying our civilization, and we have to expose their agenda.
I couldn't agree with you more. And also to just say, before I play us out, Jamie, that as I said, I've watched your show for a number of years, and just to say how I have been educated through that, but also encouraged by that, because you're absolutely right. We are being pushed out because we are Bible believing Christians. We are true conservatives, and we support Israel and the Jewish people and push back against anti-Semitism. No, that's where we are, but we keep going. Jamie, I'm going to play us out.
Thank you.
And
my final thought on that, Mark, would be, as Christians, we'll end on a Christian theme. For us, Jesus Christ's blood redeems us.
Amen.
For the leftist, it's human blood that will bring in utopia. That's why Mao wrote how important it is to kill as many people as possible. We're dealing with a genocidal movement that's a mutated carbon copy of Christianity, because for us, our Redeemer's blood saves us. For the left, killing people and causing human blood will save the earth. It's a very demonic movement.
Jamie, it is. And I'm very grateful for what you've just said, because it's a perfect, excellent way to end the show. I'll say goodbye to you on the other side, and I'll just play us out. But thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.